For our first story, we have Am I the ass for asking my brother to pay to use the family cabin after he refused to help restore it? A few years ago, my 35 male grandparents passed away and left behind a beautiful but very rundown lakeside cabin. It had been in our family for generations, but by the time it was passed down, it was in rough shape, the wood was rotting, the roof leaked, and the plumbing was ancient. My parents, not wanting the hassle, offered it to my younger brother, Matt, 30 male, first, since he had always talked about how much he loved the place growing up. At first, Matt was excited, but when he saw the actual state of the cabin, he quickly changed his mind. The renovations would cost tens of thousands of dollars, and the upkeep was more than he was willing to commit to. He told my parents that he wasn't in a position to take on such a big project, and that it was too much work for a vacation home. So they turned to me. I thought about it for a while, and even though I knew it would be a lot of work, I loved that cabin. I spent almost every summer there as a kid, fishing with my grandpa and roasting marshmallows with my cousins. It meant something to me. So I took it. The thing is, taking ownership wasn't just signing some papers, it was years of work and tens of thousands of dollars. I had to replace the roof, reinforce the foundation, fix the plumbing, and completely redo the deck, which was one bad storm away from collapsing. It became my after-work project, but it also became a major financial commitment. Every spare dollar I had went into fixing up that place. I've asked my family to help out many times, whether financially or physically with labor, but no one ever did. Fast forward to a few years later, and Matt reaches out saying he and his wife want to take their kids on a summer vacation and would love to use the cabin for a week. I told him sure, but he'd need to contribute $500 to cover utilities and general wear and tear. He flipped out. He said I was being greedy for charging family and that the grandparents wouldn't want the cabin to be a business. I reminded him that he had the chance to take ownership, and he chose not to because he didn't want the responsibility. Now that I've poured my time and money into making it a livable space, it's not fair for him to expect a free vacation just because we share blood. He argued that it's not like you're paying rent on it, and you were gonna be there anyway. But that's not the point. If I let him stay for free, where do I draw the line? Do I have to offer it to every cousin, uncle, or second cousin twice removed who wants a weekend getaway? If Matt contributes nothing but gets free access, doesn't that mean I'm basically paying for his vacation? Now our mom is involved, saying I should do the right thing, because family helps family. I told her that Matt was offered the cabin first, and he said no because it was too much work. I had then asked for financial or physical help, and he also denied. He didn't want to deal with the responsibilities, he just wants the benefits now that I've taken on all the costs. Matt hasn't spoken to me since, and our mom keeps telling me I'm being unfair. Am I the asshole for expecting him to chip in, or is he just entitled? That's the end of our first post. Let's see what the commenters had to say. Our first commenter says, not the asshole. Matt didn't contribute, mom didn't contribute, so between them they have zero say and you should have zero fucks to give. Our second commenter says, not the asshole, he did nothing to help restore and maintain the property. If you are now the legal owner, no one gets a say in who does or doesn't get to stay there or if they have to pay or not. Tell mom to butt out. If they had maintained it, you wouldn't have had to sunk so much money into it to begin with. Our third commenter says, not the asshole. He passed on the cabin because of the work, now he wants the perks without contributing? That's entitled. For our second story, we have, am I the ass for kicking my mother-in-law out of our house after she refused to call our son by his name? My husband, 34 male, and I, 31 female, recently had our first child, a son we named Elijah. We put a lot of thought into his name, we loved the meaning, and it just felt right. My mother-in-law, 62 female, had no strong opinions about it at first. She didn't gush over it, but she also didn't object. Or so we thought. The first time she met Elijah at the hospital, she looked at him and said, "Oh little David, you're so perfect." I thought I misheard her, so I ignored it. But then she said it again. I asked her, "Who's David?" And she just smiled and said, "Oh, it just suits him better." I was too exhausted from labor to argue, but over the next few weeks, she kept calling him David, texting us things like, "How's my little David doing today?" Or, "Give David a kiss for me." I told her, firmly, that his name is Elijah. She laughed and said, "Oh, I know. But I think he just feels like a David. Neither my husband nor I know anyone named David. It's not a family name. There's no sentimental reason behind it. It's just a completely random name she decided to call my child, despite us telling her not to." At first we tried to let it go hoping she'd stop if we ignored it. But it only got worse. When we FaceTimed her, she'd coo at him saying, "Grandma loves you, David." She even started knitting a baby blanket with the name David embroidered on it. The final straw was when she came over for a family dinner and kept referring to him as David in front of everyone. My sil asked, "Wait, why do you keep calling him David?" And mother-in-law just laughed and said, "Because that's his name to me." That's when I lost it. I said, "No, his name is Elijah, and if you can't respect that, you don't need to be here." She rolled her eyes and tried to wave me off, but I wasn't having it. I told her to leave. She looked shocked, but she left without much of a fight. Now my husband is upset with me. He agrees that his mom was being weird and disrespectful, but he thinks kicking her out was too extreme, and that I should have just let it go. Mother-in-law is now playing the victim, telling everyone that I'm keeping her grandson from her over a harmless nickname. Some family members think I overreacted. Others agree that her behavior was bizarre. I don't know, was I really in the wrong for putting my foot down? Am I the ass? That's the end of our second post. Let's see what the commenters had to say. Our first commenter says, "Not the asshole, this is hella weird behavior, and your feelings are valid. I also find it odd that your husband thinks you overreacted, but you literally just told her to use the correct name or to leave. It sounds like she made her choice and now she's upset with you." Our second commenter says, "Not the asshole, start calling your husband, and every family member who says you overreacted, David. All of them are David now." Our third commenter says, "I asked her, 'Who's David?' And she just smiled and said, 'Oh, it just suits him better.' Not the asshole. Time to start calling her BTCH because it suits her better." For our last story, we have, "Am I the asshole if I'm upset that my husband mentioned getting a paternity test? My 31 female husband, 32 male, just mentioned that he's keen on getting a paternity test for our 3-week-old baby girl. His reasoning is that our daughter has darker hair than him. He has brown hair, I'm white blonde. I'm a little confused as she hardly has any bloody hair, and this just feels like he's accusing me of infidelity." I actually thought he was joking initially. The conversation went as follows. He said, "Her hair is really dark." So I said, "Yeah, it is, even though it isn't darker than his." He then mentioned getting the test. It was completely out of the blue. I initially said that he should go for it as I wasn't thinking. But now I've had some time to reflect, I'm really not happy about it. If he wants to get the test, fine by me, but it just feels like he doesn't trust me. Am I overthinking this? He has no reason to think like this. He even went as far as to say, if she wasn't mine biologically, she'd still be my girl. That statement just pissed me off, and I've said nothing to him since. So, am I the asshole? Update 1. Thanks for all the comments and advice. There seems to be some common responses, so I thought I'd just reply to them here. I'm more than happy for him to get the test, but, as most have mentioned, that would confirm his lack of trust in me, his wife, and I don't think I could overlook that. I think he'll seek some counseling to discuss this issue further. I'll be inviting him to join me. Closing parenthesis exclamation mark. Some mentioned that our daughter might have been swapped at birth and the test would benefit us both. I can assure all of these commentators that she didn't leave my side once throughout our hospital stay, from her entrance to the world, to her leaving the hospital with us. I'm very happy that she's our little one. Most people mentioned projection on his part. I must admit I hadn't thought about this. I'm almost certain that this isn't the case, but I will discuss my fears, concerns with him as this is now at the forefront of my mind. I will update accordingly. Thank you all. That's the end of our last post. Let's see what the commenters had to say. Our first commenter says, "When our second child looked vastly different from our first, my husband doubted the hospital staff. He insisted for weeks that the hospital switched our baby with someone else's. He never once accused me of cheating. I am only saying this to show how that's where his mind is, and the doubting of looks doesn't cause someone to automatically jump to cheating conclusions." Our second commenter says, "This just feels like he's accusing me of infidelity." That's because he is. Edit. If he believed the baby was switched at birth, he'd use his fucking words and say that. Our third commenter says, not the asshole. His comment about the paternity test definitely implies a lack of trust, even if he tried to backtrack with the, she'd still be my girl, line. It's hurtful, and frankly, a bit insulting. That's all for today. If you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.